item, please.
Item 5 is a preliminary report on the citywide official community plan amendment bylaw, Bylaw 4113, and rezoning amendment bylaw 4114. It pertains to 1310 Coast Meridian Road, and the recommendation is that council give first reading to these two bylaws, and that these bylaws and the related applications be referred to public hearing.
So moved.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay. Councillor Robinson?
Yeah, I think it's important that, well, one question is this idea of density creep. And I just want to ask, how many times I'm trying to think, I can't remember how many times we've sort of taken a look and allowed for more density.
We're keeping a running total.
Are we keeping a running, we're keeping a running total?
I asked it out.
Okay. I mean, and I'd be prepared to bring this to I'm prepared to bring this to public hearing, but I want to have that running total available, because I think that's important. But I also do want to say that I think that given the character of that corner, I went by a couple of times, and I do actually think this is probably a better designation than single family, but I just want to be paying attention to that density creep. So as long as we can get that information with our public hearing stuff, that would be, for me, that would be, I'm fine.
Yeah, just a note on that. I think about 2 months ago or so, we asked Mr. McIntyre to take a look at our running total up in Burt Mountain. We asked for for him to keep the total going, and like the last one that we had from Progressive, they would be going down 3 instead of up. Yeah. So that's important. Councillor Asmundson, then Councillor Reamer.
Well, I have concerns about this. I don't share I think it should be probably staying as a single-family housing development. To the west of David Avenue, you have single-family housing. To the north along Coast Meridian, you presently have properties that are going to be single-family housing. And yet in this one corner here, which would be a business where you want to put in another 10 units of housing. I don't see it as running together. Are we going to then turn around with the people to the north along there and say, well, okay, since there's town housing here, you can change your designation now and increase your single family to town housing also? And are we going to run town housing all the way up? Because this is where the density creep starts to come. You're changing one corner with single family housing already around it. Now you're saying, okay, this guy's a winner, you got 10 extra units, the guys above you now, you have to stay. I can see these other property owners coming out and saying, well, I'm going to now request townhouse zoning along there. I have concerns about East Watkins and the houses fronting East Watkins. I see the ability for people with the front of the house facing the street maybe wanting to cut through the proposed SPIA area because you're looking at the front of the house. I think the housing plan with 10 units where the backyard's back onto it, you could put in like hedging and stuff like that along the back. I mean, you've got to realize if you're going to be at a busy corner, people are going to put up fencing or some hedging on the front of the houses to protect their privacy and noise. So I just see this as a density creep. You're going to have applications above that, and where do you stop on this? And how often, and what's our vision? Because we seem to be having applications quite often turning around saying, oh.
Access, or is that an issue related? Because I believe it does cross a creek.
Through the chair, yes, it's an excellent question. DFO has provided approval of a temporary access across that creek, but we would need to obtain their approval again for any permanent access across that creek. So at this point, it's just temporary.
And what is the process? Is that a really onerous process to go through? And how would it be with respect to the movement of this particular application?
It's part of the application referral process in terms of the development permit and water course DP. I don't know if I would call it particularly onerous. It is ultimately, though, does require DFO's approval with regard to the treatment and any sort of crossing over that creek. It does fall within their jurisdiction.
Right. I do, because we're wanting to change the OCP here, and yet I know Transportation Services have stated that they're satisfied with the traffic situation, and which is consistent with the OCP that we already had, but now we're going to be changing it. So that's, I was just wondering about that temporary access and whether or not there's any other way to allow traffic to get out onto Coast Meridian without having to go through the other single-family dwellings.
Right. It was, as you pointed out, it is part of the long-term intended vision in the neighborhood plan that the access to that site would ultimately come from the north as those northern sites do develop. Hence, that's why it's just considered to be a permanent or temporary access across that creek for the time being, and that's really what it's dependent upon is ultimately those sites to the north, and then the access onto coast happening up further north as those sites develop.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question. You're telling me that the access onto David right now is a temporary access?
Coast.
Coast. No, I'm looking at the map that you've shown me, attachment 2. Yeah, how about pictures? Love pictures. Up we go.
Madam Chair, just perhaps while we're setting up the picture, just mention for those from members of the public that the Engineering, Utilities, and Environment Committee meeting will start immediately after this one. There just may be a slight delay to its scheduled start time.
I always thought we were 1 to 3, so obviously we're not important anymore. We're finished at 2:30.
Today's meeting times were adjusted slightly in order to permit the number of meetings to take place.
In recognition of the skill of the chair.
We'll, the skill of the chair. Well, just wait.
Off of temporary access is off of Coast Meridian to the north of the site.
Okay, so you don't have any access then going on to David that I see here.
That's correct. No access off.
What's this little pointy part on the map here, the dark map? Attachment 2.
Pedestrian access.
It's not a driveway.
That is simply a dead end on the internal road system that allows for vehicles to turn around. That's not actually intended to be a connection onto David Avenue.
Okay. So here's the question for you. We went through 3 years ago, we went through a neighborhood planning process. We did our planning. Why at that time did we not look to putting townhouses on such a major corner? Because it is a major intersection up there. So if we want our density around major intersections, which makes perfect sense to me, why at that time would we not have put this as a townhouse site? Just didn't think of it, or? Like it would make much more sense on a major intersection like this to have some kind of multifamily rather than just houses. So, okay, who wants to do this one? Who wants to drive to Seattle? Rob or Jim? Yeah. That's their punishment.
Madam Chair, that's a really good question. Unfortunately, I don't have a really good answer right now, but let us take that away. And when this comes forward, there's been a number of points and questions made here this afternoon. We're making note of that. And if we could, we'll check back into the history and why in the High Creek neighborhood plan it provided for single family along this stretch as opposed to some multifamily. But let's research that. We'll have the information.
And one more thing before Councillor Sikora speaks. Could you please, before next Monday's meeting, get the running total to us, to Council? Thank you. Councillor Sikora?
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Erica.
What other access would they have going further north?
At Galloway.
Galloway.
Yep.
It's quite a ways away.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be going to 2 or 3 other properties, is that correct?
Correct. Attachment 5 on the report shows the road concept plan for the neighborhood plan.
Have we discussed it with the future, with the owners of the other properties up, going north?
I believe those property owners are aware of this road concept plan and the neighborhood plan.
And do they like it?
I haven't spoken to them directly, but I know that they are aware that's the intended. So this is the...
So,
Okay, let's look at it, Councillor Sikor. So show us which is the access then, off Galloway,
Here's our subject site right here.
right?
And then it's intended for, ultimately, there's an access point that will be directly across from Galloway with the north-south connecting road down to the property.
Okay.
so you would be acquiring the property from the other properties north for the road dedication?
This would happen as those properties to the north come forward for development application.
Okay, if this was a single-family dwelling, would you need that access through all the other properties?
Those sites are currently designated for single-family in the OCP, so yes, that would still, that's right.
Yeah, you'd still
You
need
still
the
need that roadway? Okay, because I'll tell you, I've got, like Councilor Adamson, I've got mixed feelings about this one. I really do. I mean, we go through a community plan map, we have a town hall meeting, everybody's on side, there's not much objection, then all of a sudden, 2 years later, we now have come up with something else. Now, what's the sense? I know that every 5 years or so, we revisit a community plan map, which is fine. But I think that, you know what, we're rushing this. The community plan map probably is not even dry yet, and we now want to change it. And I've got great difficulties with that, especially in that corner. Okay? Thank you.
Councillor Reamer had a quick question.
I'm sorry, I'm just a little confused about this long diagram that you've got up now. Where exactly, and I'm looking at the larger attachment 2 right now, where exactly is that road that's going to go up to Galloway?
The one down there.
This road right here?
Yeah, but on attachment 2, can you point it out?
Down.
It's easier to see it on.
Madam Chair, if I could, perhaps we'll
Attachment 4.
Eric was finding it. Attachment 2 is an air photo showing the existing conditions
Yeah.
of the property boundaries and houses along there. The neighborhood plan.
Attachment 4, Mr. McIntyre shows it in relation to the units.
So it would be this road right here, which would ultimately connect to that north-south connector to the properties to the north that's shown on the road.
Okay. Okay, that explains that for me. Thank you.
Okay. We have a recommendation in front of us, which moves it. First reading for both the Amendment 4113, Amendment 4114, and that they be referred to public hearing. Do I have a mover?
It's already been moved.
Seconded?
I already moved it.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The final item on the agenda concerns the minutes of the Maillardville Commercial and Cultural Revitalization Task Force meeting of April 8th. The recommendation is to receive those minutes.
Receive. So, second.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Move adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We're done. Now,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
engineering meeting may begin.